properly has to do with dragons. Let's see. Here we go. So we have Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, which is a pretty big deal, especially for those of us who are on HBO frequently. This is they have everything to gain from this working out. I mean, we all know how poorly received the last season of the original Game of Thrones was. This is the franchise's chance to sort of course correct and recover some semblance of the legacy of the franchise, at the very least, as far as the TV audience is concerned. You know, the books are the books. You know, it's a poorly kept secret how much the television series seem to frequently play fast and loose with the process of adapting to the books, especially in the later seasons, where the show and the books, if I'm not mistaken, were basically being written in parallel to each other. So it was kind of hard to adapt material that hadn't been released yet. So of course they kind of had to forge their own path, and of course they kind of wet the bed in the end, but whatever. Now we're getting if I'm not mistaken, a prequel. House of the Dragon is a prequel to the original HBO series Game of Thrones. So let's take a look at this first official trailer. Here's House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones from HBO Max.
War is afoot.
A dream.
Yeah, safe bet this is an HBO original series. Where is this going? Hulu?
I heard the sound of thundering hooves, splintering shields and ringing swords. And I placed my heir upon the Iron Throne. And all the dragons roared as one.
I consider the matter urgent. That of your succession.
Who else would have a claim?
The firstborn child.
Rhaenyra. No queen has ever sat the Iron Throne.
The king has an heir, Daemon Targaryen.
I will not be made to choose between my brother and my daughter.
Difficult choice, definitely.
Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. Knives will come out.
You are the king. Your duty is to take a new wife.
I have decided to name a new heir. I'm your heir.
They made the throne bigger. I remember reading about that.
Is afoot.
Do you think the realm will ever accept me as their queen?
A woman would not inherit the Iron Throne, because that is the order of things.
When I'm queen,
Oh.
I'm to the order.
Now we know what that plot is
Your
definitely going to
family
be.
has dragons. They are a power men should never have trifled with.
If Rhaenyra comes into power, she can cut off any challenge to her succession.
I am to inherit the Iron Throne. She will block my way.
Our hearts remain as one.
Our hearts are never one.
These are some epic scenes here.
On the Iron Throne. Where is duty? Where is sacrifice?
That is the apex of the build.
Now they see you as you are.
Man. Okay, so that was Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon from HBO Max. You know, you really got to hand it to this production's cinematography, costume design, and visual effects people. They just consistently hit it out of the park. Say what you will about the directing and the screenwriting and the acting sometimes, but those three departments, the cinematography, the VFX, and the costume design, they pretty much nail it. They pretty much nail it consistently with this IP. I almost want to check this out, but I'm coming in cold. Basically, I never watched the original series, truth be told, but like the way that this is presenting itself, especially given that this is a prequel. I mean, depending on how prequels are executed, they can be an amazing and insightful entry point into the franchise, into a pre-existing franchise, depending on how it's done. The problem can happen when prequels go out of their way to involve elements or especially characters that come into play later, because it just completely compromises any real sense of peril, because you can't put those characters into any sort of life and death situation without the audience on some level subconsciously knowing they're gonna survive this. They have to survive this, or else it breaks the entire franchise. I'll give you an example. The best example I can think of is the Fast and Furious franchise, because let's not forget, the 4th, 5th, and 6th movies in that franchise are basically prequels to 7, 8, and 9, and onwards, obviously. So, and it's also a prequel to the 3rd film. And that particular note is important because at the end of the 3rd film, Vin Diesel has a cameo at the end of the 3rd Fast and Furious film, which takes place after 4, 5, and 6. So that means that anything life or death, any of the stunt work, any of the harrowing things that were done in the course of 4, 5, and 6, that crazy driving underneath the fuel tanker at the beginning of 4, the fight against the tank in 5, the flip car chicken fighting basically in chicken drive fighting or whatever you want to call it in 6 in London, all of that, Vin Diesel had to survive all of that. And that crazy airplane stunt at the end of 6, I don't want to say any more about the end of that movie. He had to survive that. And they played that in a way that suggested he could die there. We know that he didn't die there. So, like, I don't like when franchises incorporate elements that we know come later previously. Now, this looks like a completely new cast of characters here for this Game of Thrones prequel. I'm glad that they didn't go that route. You have some people with some common shared names, so clearly this is going to be tied very closely into some familiar lineages that I've heard in like trailers for the original series before. Again, full disclosure, I didn't see the original show, but hang on a second. We have some more comments. Hey, Steph ZX, thanks for watching. Never saw Game of Thrones, but this seems like a good series to help ease you into it. The cinematography is quite impressive. Thank you. Reiterating what I was just saying. Another example is Star Wars. You knew all the new characters introduced in the prequels were going to get killed. Well, I mean, I'm trying to remember. Did Jar Jar Binks survive? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. Don't come. Everybody in the comment section, don't kill me in the comments, please. Don't do that. I'm just honestly asking because I'm not very big into Star Wars. I'm trying to remember if any of the new characters that were introduced wound up getting killed off by the end of episode 3. Obviously Anakin had to survive. Obviously Obi-Wan had to survive. Please correct me in the comments if I'm incorrect there with that memory. But anyway, this trailer in particular, House of the Dragon, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I'm going to give this trailer a thumbs up. Just basically on the pure principle of I understand what this trailer is trying to convey in terms of this is a fundamentally separate story from what we've seen before. Try to approach this with an open mind. I think that's what HBO was trying to do with this. Try to approach House of the Dragon with an open mind, and we'll see how that turns out on August 21st when that actually dropped. Staff ZX says those who didn't get killed disappeared. Unfortunate, but I guess that makes sense. I guess they had to. There was the only one way or the other that they could effectively sort of move on from the franchise, I guess, after they didn't need those characters anymore, which is a cheap cop out, but whatever. That's a different conversation and rant for another day. Let's move on. We have